record.
There you go. So anyway, aren't you two drinking tonight? I can see Bruce is stuffing his face again.
Only time you're coming.
Oh, Christ.
Right, well, welcome back to part two. Nicholas is moaning that, again, it's Monday, nobody's drinking. But then Nicholas works funny hours, so he doesn't have weekends. It's weekends for drinking. I must admit, I am on the sparkly water tonight because I'm preparing for my trek to Ireland and my search for the perfect Guinness and Murphy's and Beamish. And I said, I've got my bottle of Paddy's.
Have you got an itinerary of pubs worked out yet?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Have you
yes.
got a pub itinerary?
Yeah, so I'm hopefully kicking off in what's it, Malloy's in Newport, in Westport, and then we're actually booked in a pub on Friday night, parking in their car park. So that'll be grand. And Galway on night.
Part of your beer news, Mike. Have you heard that there's another Irish bar theme park coming to York now?
Oh yes,
Oh, yeah.
You might cover that in a minute. Right. So we were just talking about Wetherspoons. Wetherspoons,
Right.
unfortunately, are dropping their steak, gammon, and mixed grills. So we'll have to see what that feels like. Actually, I'm going to say the beer has been quite good in Wetherspoons recently, and I've got to say, Jaipur is going down quite well. I think it was 260 this week in the Newcastle and the Lime Spoons. I'm in Spoons tomorrow because tomorrow is the 130th birthday of Reginald Mitchell, Spitfire designer. So we're having a bit of a civic do for him. We're at the Potteries Spitfire Centre in the morning, and then obviously the Wetherspoons in Stoke is called Reginald Mitchell. So we're in there for a couple of hours in the afternoon. So fortunately I'm at work, so I don't think I'll be downing pints of things.
Jaipur in Ilkley, Mike.
Yeah.
Jaipur in Ilkley was 229, obviously with a 50p off 179.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
if I hadn't known that I'd ordered it, I wouldn't have been able to say Jaipur. And once again, I've read a story that I thought that was going to be on the bar permanently. But I'm sure on the pump clip it says for a limited time. So whilst it's available on all his bars, I don't think it's going to be a permanent, like he's got Doom Bar and like he's got Abbott on permanently. And as we said before, I can't see how it can be at that sort of price when, every other place you go into, a bit like Landlord, where everybody else is getting on £5 for it. So we'll have to wait and see. But no, sadly, I said to Jackie, I said, if you gone up to the bar and bought me this, knowing it used to be one of my favourite beers, there's no way I would have identified as a Jaipur anymore.
Mm. Right.
It was 279, right? I went back to Rochdale last week. Because my friend wants to go to Town Hall. I have to say that Wetherspoons in Rochdale has an astonishing range of beers in it. It's the biggest range of beers I've ever seen at Wetherspoons. It's a cavernous building and just quite lovely to see, really. If you thought we're trying to describe to people, you've got loads of pensioners go every morning, obviously all gather there in some of the quiet corners and they're drinking a coffee. It's kind of what's meant to be. And then by the same token, outside, you've kind of got sort of smackheads outside, but everybody just rubs along together in that one in Rochdale. It's a hugely diverse Wetherspoons. But I have to say the choice of the beers, the local beers, the range of beers got is mad. You've not been yet, have you? You'll have to go. I also went the Flying Horse in Rochdale. I forgot to mention that. That's the biggest range of beers I've seen in any pub for a long, long time. There must have been 15 or 16 cask lines, loads of ale ciders. Stunning pub, that Flying Horse. That's in the shadow of the Town Hall. In fact, that old Calder Valley line now, that I think when we go, because you've got so many pubs and micro pubs in Halifax. Sowerbridge I've not been to. They've got a good mix. Hebden Bridge, of course, fantastic drinking town. As I say, if you're off to Rochdale and you've got the Baum there, the Flying Horse, that big spoons, it's I think it's better than the Keithley trip and certainly better than that Railway Rail Ale Trail. We should have to do it soon.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, Bruce. Right, we mentioned Ockles last week, and we had a little bit of a debate about them. And Nick was kind of suggesting they had been bought out, and I quickly checked, and they aren't. They still are the original company. However, there is a couple of interesting tales which I thought I'd follow up this week. And again, spookily, like often happens, we talk about something on this podcast, and the following week, the beer media or the beer social media is suddenly full of it. So I think we are real true trendsetters. So yeah, Ockles is the island's Isle of Man, the oldest continuously operating brewery. But Nick was kind of right in that they weren't quite bought out per se, but in the 1990s, two lager companies, Carlsberg and the Bats, were very, very keen to get a corner on the Isle of Man, particularly with all those motorbike people going across there, of course, now, to get a corner of that market. So they both kind of came across flashing the cash, and in the end, Labatt's were the chosen company, mainly because at the time Labatt's was sponsoring Formula One, and of course Nigel Mansell was living and well, I don't know, I think he was he born on the Isle of Man, but he's certainly living on the Isle of Man, probably for tax reasons, and therefore that was chosen. However, interestingly, the Manx Parliament has a very similar law like the Resurgence that Germany has, in that they have the Manx Brewing Purity Act of 1874, which basically says, a bit like it does in Germany, that you can only brew beer with water, malt, and hops, and yeast and hops, and nothing else. So ultimately, Labatt's didn't actually get a foothold and didn't buy the company out. What they did do, though, is they put quite a bit of money in building a new brewery so that Ockles could brew Labatt's lager by license, but to Isle of Man purity laws. So quite interesting, really. And the other one that came out of it as well is that the beers, and I've always really liked Ockles beers, and they reckon again it's something to do with the water, in that
Oh yeah, they're lovely.
the Isle of Man only has surface
Yeah.
water. It doesn't actually have any aquifers, any kind of, bit like Burton has, and therefore
Oh, right.
it's a softer, slightly saltier rainwater, obviously being the middle of the Irish Sea, and that's what they've always used their beers for. And it says there, so the beers tend to be rounder, fuller in the mouth than say beers from Burton or Dublin, which again, and they have lower minerals and less calcium carbonate. So bitters and miles were particularly their thing. So interesting what you find out, isn't it? And again, that brewery looks a fantastic brewery. We'd love to have a trip round there. It's kind of a mix of
Yeah.
modern and old, isn't it? With some very fine looking old coppers. Fantastic bar there, built with an old copper as a kind of a kind of a top up into it. So yeah, Ockles Beer, as I say, the nearest one to us is the Bear
See,
in
Ockham's beer is
Chester.
in this country now.
So again, Bruce.
Ah.
So yeah, I
I
certainly
was
have them
going to
in
say, do you ever see
Chester.
him in this country? And we don't get.
Yeah, you get him in Wales. You get him in Wales quite a bit. You get him
Ah,
in Chester. A couple of pubs in Chester have them. There's actually an Ockles, I don't know if it's an Ockles pub, but there's an Ockles. There's a brewery. There's a pub in the Bear which she always has Ockles on. So all very nice. Right, pubs being
it,
open and shut.
it is delicious, wasn't it?
So, first, the bad news: the cask. Always a little bit of strange. I think me and you went in here about 3 or 4, probably just before COVID, wasn't it? It was quite a
Mm,
surreal experience. This is up on the kind of south part of the south cliff of Scarborough.
Scarborough.
It was
mm,
always a big kind of studenty pub, wasn't it, in the day? It's always done really well. I think it's been on the Good Beer Guide for many, many, many years. Last time we went in, Nick, it was a bit ropey, wasn't it? It was a bit
yeah,
kind of, oh, whilst they had cask beer on, it just looked a bit run down. One or two strange people in there, merely drinking, carling. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's going to be shut, and I worry that the size of it and where it is, it's right for apartments, isn't it? It's that the posh bit of Scarborough to some extent, and it's what is it? Was it a 4-story building on a corner plot with parking?
yeah.
So I'm
It's
guessing
be-
it
it's
won't
been
be
threatened with
usable.
closure for about a year and a
Yeah,
half.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing that one. And then a little bit out of the blue, the guys who have the guys have Valhalla, don't they? But they have Pivovar as well. These guys are just Valhalla brews.
Yeah.
They have both.
No, they just have Valhalla.
Just Valhalla. So
Yeah.
two guys that
No,
have
they're
Valhalla,
just on the one. They're just
which me and Nicholas a little bit sit on the fence about. Bruce quite likes it. I'm not quite sure yet. Sitting with his Viking horn, but it's certainly an interesting little pub. The
and
interior
the
is interesting, if
ton
nothing
of
else.
meat.
Yes, it's into you. So anyway, the two guys behind
It's like
that
Disneyland.
have just bought in Grape Lane, one of the old buildings there that has been derelict for a while. This is just round the corner from the Green Dragon, which is my little favourite pub in Whitby, and also, and one I've still been in, the Quirky Den, mainly because it's quite quirky when it opens. So it
No,
only tends to open in the summer. Last time I was
yeah,
there, it was
yeah.
open, and they famously specialise in Thixton's Old Peculiar from the wood, and that's what they kind of sell themselves. So anyway, looks a very nice building. This one, which is on Grope Lane, as we discussed in our podcast, which is just off the harbour, really, very close to the Swing Bridge, if you know Whitby. Quite a nice little street, actually. There's a few restaurants down here. There's a couple of antique shops. Is it the Captain Cook Museum down here as well at the far end? So anyway, they bought
Yeah,
this
it is.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Actually, when
A lot of shops.
you look on the YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you look in the pictures they shared. There's a fair bit of work to do by the looks of it. It looks absolutely, the front looks okay, but there's some pictures there, and it does look a bit of a wreck. So I think it's going to be at the end of the year before they get there. They haven't yet mentioned whether there's a theme to this, whether it's going to be another Viking pub. Obviously, goth weekends are very steampunk these days are very big in Scarborough and Whitby, sorry, aren't they? So we will see.
They'll
And then
love this,
again,
won't they?
we're
But you
back
got
on
to say about
trend.
these.
Go on.
I mean, when COVID came, we had Valhalla, which was a lovely little cozy place. And then in COVID, instead of just sitting back and taking the furlough money, they pretty much went in and got permission to convert the top floor and just grafted and grafted and grafted loads of work themselves. Put on the floor in Valhalla. Personally, I think it lost a bit of something when they opened the top floor. It was lovely coming out of the big bench seat and went downstairs, but of course, being COVID. But I mean, I like Valhalla. It's very atmospheric. The tourists love it. The big supporters of local beers. And but I said the one thing I have to say, the work ethic of them two is absolutely bonkers. I mean, to take that on and do that, so I think they'll do well, really. And let's say with the Goths, I think that'll be a big, big success.
Right, and again, being bang on whatever the word is, form or on contemporary, we've been talking last few weeks about railway pubs, and we have a new
Yes.
one that we need to tick off.
Yeah.
So Chester Railway Station, which already has a cracking pub just down the road from it, and actually has got in fact, there was a craft festival on this weekend. I think they call it the Yard. There's kind of the old shunting yard. It hasn't got it's semi-glassed, but it's a fantastic venue, and that has quite a few beer festival things on it. But now the Spitting Feathers Brewery, which again, Nick, we know well because again their tap is actually not far from the Ockles pub down Bridge Street in Chester, the one that you go upstairs to that's got like the medieval tapestries. It's an old guild hall and it is
That's
still
which
got
is a medieval
that's
hall. Yeah, yeah.
Spitting Feathers, yeah. So they've just taken over the old refreshment rooms in the Chester station, and the bar itself looks a little bit of God knows why you've put that in because the rest of it looks fantastic. But there's some kind of like looks
It
like a
does,
bloody
yeah.
IKEA bar, doesn't it? Like a MDF bar, which is not in
Yeah, it's
my kind of
beautiful.
weather. But anyway, it's open now. They're
Mm,
offering
mm.
No, I
eight
think
pumps.
that's white plaster that you're seeing. It's not for micro. I think you'll when you actually see in real life because the quality of the picture isn't very good.
No,
I would think it'd be like almost like alabaster plaster.
it's wood. It's wood. It's clearly wood. There's grain in it. So it's not great. Anyway, eight hand pumps, four spitting feathers will be on every time, and four guests. So there's certainly some very nice ceiling work going on there. So again, we've talked about Chester. That's another one
Mm.
on the northern train line, isn't it? Again, actually a great place,
Unfortunately,
Chester.
I was going to go this Saturday, but the direct train from Leeds to Chester is no longer in the May times. It has gone. I didn't know that, Nick, until yesterday. We were going to go out this Saturday. Oh, Chester, because you could go direct from Leeds to Chester, right through Altrincham and
Yeah,
all those ways. But that it's no longer. You've got to
no
go via
longer.
TP at Manchester or Liverpool and transport. So a bit. Know what we're getting there for £10 now, sadly.
All right.
And then again, we were
Could have
talking about this
fancied
last
that,
week.
bros.
The
Yeah.
Bass, again, we talked about Bass, and I did see what these guys had seen. It had a bit of resurgence. And again, blow me, and again,
Yeah.
okay, it wasn't the Derby Telegraph did a whole page on it. And actually, give it some due.
Hmm.
That quite a few of the connoisseurs are saying that the current Bass that's being brewed, and it's actually being brewed by Marston's or whatever they call these days, because Marston's doesn't technically exist, do they? It is actually not bad. And there's a couple of guys that kind of do
Marston's don't brew anymore. Marston's just from pubs, don't they? So
yeah.
it's
So
Carlsberg.
I presume it's the old Marston's brew that Carlsberg Britvic, as they now refer to, are using. But there's a couple of guys that kind of do an inventory of Bass around the country, and apparently it's doing very well. And actually, they reckon it's tasting quite good.
Mm.
And as I mentioned last week, Carlsberg seems to have had a bit of a complete U-turn and realised actually people quite like this type of beer. So yeah, it's the Bass. Look out for Bass. It's having a bit of a resurgence. Um, Again, it's
Mm.
to me, it's always been a bit like all brewery bitter and Bass are always quite similar. When you get a good bite of Bass, it's good. And to be honest, the best Bass I've ever drank
It's sulfur, isn't it?
was out of a jug. Yeah, it's got that sulphur tang in it. They call it the Burton Sniff.
Mm.
It's got that sulphury tang, which all brewery bitter has,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It's very similar. And again, the best Bass
Yeah,
I've had was
definitely.
out of jugs. The pubs you serve it in jugs. When I was down at Loughborough, a couple of pubs there still serve it in jugs, kind
Oh,
of warm on a day like this. So it's pretty flat. But yeah, Bass is that one. And then yeah, Ilkley Brew. We mentioned Ilkley, but unfortunately, Ilkley Brewery who have just opened a new tap room, haven't they? Which is a little bit of a strange thing. They opened quite a new, the Grove. I don't know if you had a chance to walk past there, Nick. I think it's on that. Is it on the same road that the what's it, a Ham is, and the kind of posh tea rooms are in Ilkley. We have shown the pictures on the
mm.
podcast some time ago. Anyway, news this week was that they were looking like they were going to go into administration. However, they have been saved by an investor. Although, as always, it's a little bit not quite exactly sure who it is. A Mr. Smith. So, Graham Smith, thankfully, not another Smith, another Mr. Smith from Yorkshire.
Nice.
So, local
Plenty of
businessman.
money in Ilkley. If they can
Um,
afford to have a Betty's and Leishman's, then yeah.
hmm. I was quite surprised when it said actually there's only 11 jobs at the brewery at the moment because they, again, Ilkley beers you do see quite a lot. Certainly in supermarket they do quite a lot of supermarket beers, don't they?
Good coverage.
And but they've only got 11 jobs at the
There you
brewery,
go.
including the
Yeah, I
management
don't
team. Uh,
I don't think you do see them on bars. I think you even I used to do it. You used to get mixed up between Ilkley and Ossett breweries. And obviously Ossett are massive now. And Ilkley, I can't really remember the last time I walked in anywhere other than Spoons in Ilkley. And they normally always just have Mary Jane or no Joshua Jane. But other than bottles, yeah, I can't say I often see it on a pump clip anywhere.
anyway,
They're big
hopefully
supporters
they've
of
been
them. They're
saved.
pubbing Skipton out the yeah.
I'm gonna move
Yeah.
this. I'm not gonna bother. This was just something boring about a mobile phone app that could tell you whether your beer was off or not. Which I think all you gotta do is sniff it and you know where your beer is off. So I'm not gonna bother that one.
Mm.
Again, interestingly, Northern Monk have just announced a new collaboration, a bit more than that, with Dam. So, Spanish beer company Dam. We haven't mentioned them much, have we? They've just made an agreement that they're going to now distribute
Mm.
Northern Monk, Faith, and one of their other beers across all their outlets. So I presume they've got a Heineken type deal with some of the pub chains that puts their lagers into pubs. So again, Northern Monk, they've quieted down a bit, haven't they? They're not quite as don't know. They were at one point. If you remember, there was a new
Mm.
funky beer coming
Yeah.
out every week, wasn't there?
Aunt Bessie's beer. Yeah.
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 So
Pooch.
they seem to just settle down and just crack on
And
and
the
making beer.
break, yeah, and the breaking news tonight, Todd. Exactly, that's what I should concentrate on. But I mean, the big breaking news tonight is that our local celebrity chef Tommy Banks has announced he's starting his own pub chain. That's just out today. He's going to call it the Jeopardy pub chain, and his first pub's going to be the General Tarleton out near Knaresborough, which I didn't even know was closed. So that's going to be quite interesting. What do you think to that, Nick? About because of on Tommy Banks pub chain around Yorkshire,
Well,
going to take over
if it's anything
local
like his
pubs.
restaurant in York, Bruce, where he basically advertised it as being Michelin star food for the normal person, well, certainly I don't consider myself to be a normal person. He wants me to spend 20 quid on the starter, 50 quid on the main course, and 20 quid on a pudding.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, the
And then
prices
just
will be interesting, won't they?
last bit on that
Yeah.
Northern
And just
Monk.
because he can cook a decent, just because he can cook a decent plate of dinner doesn't mean he can necessarily run pubs. Look what happened to
Oh,
our friend at where was it, Carlton Miniot? Morrissey and what was his mate
Yeah,
called? He was supposed to be a chef, wasn't he?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, he's
So
just closed his pub
get
in
to see that,
Staffordshire as
won't we?
well, as Morris. He's closed his pub here in Staffordshire. He's closed. He's walked away. He's actually been taken on by somebody
He
else.
said he was quite nice as well.
It was all right. I wouldn't say it was very nice.
Yeah,
It was all right.
strange.
Just the last bit of that Northern Monk story. They also beer there that I think we missed this, but apparently they've done a collab with Timothy Taylor's, and they did something called Northern Rising,
Oh,
which
I've seen it. I've seen
now,
it. Yeah,
yeah. So we might try and track
yeah,
that
I've
down.
seen it. Yeah.
4.4% Unity Stout. So we missed that one. Bit of sad news. We've talked about Robinsons
Mm.
quite a bit, and again,
What's it? They've also done a collab with Titanic.
okay, I'm just in the middle of a eulogy here, Bruce, for the last living Robinson. So some sad news
Ah,
in that Dennis
sorry.
Robinson, who was the last surviving member of the Robinson family, still working in the Stockport brewery, unfortunately has died. A fair old age, but he's the last of them. And as we said, it's mainly fitting as
Mm.
that. I think they've pretty much moved out of the town now. We mentioned before when we did our trip to Stockport, they are moving into a
Yeah.
built brewery, which is on the edge of the M60. Obviously, a lot easier for getting beer in and out. There's still talks that they're going to retain the old brewery, which again is quite a dominant on the landscape of Stockport, isn't it? Particularly from that lovely street that we were on, that you look over to it. It was going to be a visit, and not heard much about that since, though. I guess economically, it's not great times. Robbo's, beers, pubs seem to be ticking up, but just some sad news that again, one of our still family breweries. Well, I guess it technically, I think still is. I think there are still members
That
of.
was a few months ago, Mike, I believe.
Yeah,
Because the last time I was in Robinson's pub, I picked up one of their newsletters, and it was in there. It was a
yeah,
really nice article about the family dynasty, and it was in there. So
still on there.
I think
Yeah.
the last time I picked up a Robinson's newsletter must have been either the beginning of this year when we're in Preston or in Lake District. So I think it was 2 or 3 months back.
And then just two quick ones. Again, the new beer leads is out, which I get kind of sent to me now, which is quite nice. A couple of stories that I thought were interesting in the beer leads camera magazine. One was about beware of imitations, and particularly Molson Coors with Wainwright. And you may have seen some very strange new hand pumps that they're putting in. And in fact, one or two pubs have got them side by side. If there's a picture here if you're on YouTube. And they do a long cylindrical thing, which is one of these where you pull it and it pours the pint on one pull. So this is this new fresh beer. So they were just saying that it's becoming a little bit more out there. Wainwright Gold in
Oh,
particular,
no.
Wainwright Amber, and Witchwood Hobgoblin IPA, which again are old Molson Coors, aren't they? Those beers now. I think Molson Coors, Holy Carlsberg, I can't remember. I always get mixed up here. It says Marston's there, doesn't it? So perhaps they are. And then the other one, Nick, we were here. We were here. Ooh,
Carlsberg.
Last Christmas, weren't we? Skipton. Um, there was a very young barman behind there who was looking very, very green because he'd been drinking Jamesons and Bailey's Chasers the night before. But he was very talkative. So this is the little micro bar, which is across the
Oh,
road almost from the Devonshire, which is the Weatherspoons in Skipton. And it was Styles Bar, then it became the Ref and Whistle, and it's now become the Yorkshireman. So it's certainly worth going in. The beers, they had quite a nice range of beers when we were there. Obviously, again, Skipton, you spoiled the choice that you're in Skipton with what Camera Pub of the beer engine, not far away, the Narrow Boat,
yeah.
and all the other good pubs. But yeah, the Ref and Whistle, is now called the Yorkshireman, which again is a little bit of a micro bar just around the corner there. And then I think the last thing I've got on here just came up on Molten Moan today, which I thought was quite ironic. Somebody just posted, and again, for those who are not on YouTube, I'm going to go on a pub crawl in Norton and Malton, starting the Malt Shovel, then to the Union, up to the Buckrose, on the Railway Tavern, up to the Gate, George, Green Man, Black Swan, Golden Line, Clarence, Cross Keys, Sotheby's, and finish at the White Swan. Oh, trouble is they've all shut down, which is quite a sad testament, isn't it? And I was working
Mm,
out, I think probably
mm,
nearly, well, over half of those have closed
mm.
since we've been on the podcast. which is what the last 4 years or so. So Malton wants renowned
That's
for its
right.
pubs, and I think Nick, last time me and you were there, I mean, literally now, what have you got? You've got the Blue Bell, so the Blue Ball, Chapter Two, Omni, and then Royal Oak. If you want to get in there in
Spoiled
Malton,
Cow,
yeah,
Omni, Pizza on the Square, Royal Oak,
and
Globe,
Brass
Full
Castle,
Globe.
Glebe,
and that's it.
yeah.
Mm,
So yeah, all these pubs that were once in
Yeah.
Norton, the Union, the Buckrose, the Railway Tavern,
yeah.
all now shut. And then the Gate, the George, the Green Man, the Black Swan, the Golden Lion, Clarence, Crosskeys, Sotheby's, and the White Swan, all sadly shut down. Sotheby's and the Crosskeys, or Rose and Crown, sorry, and Crosskeys, probably the last ones to go, weren't they? Are they still looking very dead? I know the Sotheby's build looked terrible last time I was in Malton. It's you can tell now it's falling to pieces now. All the
Cross
windows in.
Keys is Cross Keys is unique. I was told that it's actually purely freehold. It's not owned by the estate. So if somebody with a little bit of an ounce could come in, then they can do whatever they want there. The problem with it is it's obviously such an old building. It needs a hell of a lot of money pumping into it. Disabled access ain't great either. But yeah, it's actually completely freehold. So the estate hadn't got their grip on you. And obviously it's not under it's not leased from a pub chain.
And
So,
the bar itself, I mean, the
if
rooms
somebody
and
who knew
bars
what
are
they were
okay.
doing wanted to come in, they could control it.
I mean, the bar's all right, isn't it? The bar and
Yeah,
the
I say
rooms
I
are
think
fine.
number one they're up against it. Yeah, but you're up against the disabled access, which is the best way in the world. You know, I might be controversial now, but people who are genuinely disabled, they just get on with it. You know, it's the pseudo disabled people who like to kick off and make a noise about not being able to access places, and yet these people, you know, they aren't.
In their
Yeah,
access around the back.
people I know people with no arms and no legs, and they don't make a big noise about it. And yet these people who, well, I can't walk up 2 steps, and therefore you're stopping me from coming in this pub, and I'm going to sue you. And I think that's part of the problem. I don't know. Well, you've got to go all the way around. You know, you've got to go up. What is it? Is it Finkel Street where Boys is, and round the back there? And even then,
Reasonable
that
judgment,
is
isn't
the
it?
estate's land. So probably the estate has still got you by the short and
Yeah.
curlies.
Reasonable
Say
adjustment.
again.
Reasonable adjustment. That's the law.
Well,
You make reasonable adjustment.
yeah. But I'm afraid in modern society, that still doesn't hold water.
Right, so that's it for this episode of. So it's been a little bit of an eclectic mix there, but we've
That's
kind of
9
checked the fact. Bruce, you'll be drinking your 4 pints of whatever lager it is in the LNER Stadium tomorrow, watching the mighty York City, getting ready for their trip to Wembley. Maybe if they can beat Oldham,
I am.
who were they were a bit good, weren't they?
Yeah,
Oldham in their
both
quarter
exciting.
final.
They were. I'm really hoping for the best, but fearing the worst. Yeah.
Is it a one-off
So
this one?
yeah,
It
it's
just
gonna be
do they play
exciting night
one
now. But
round or two? Is it 2 rounds this one?
no, 2 legs.
Two legs.
I forget now. I think it's no, because York finished second. I think it becomes a just a one-off.
One
I
off.
think. I
Yeah,
really don't know. I'm going to match. I'll have a look at my ticket. I'll have a look at
yeah,
my ticket. We can log off. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I
Will you
think
go
if
to
they,
Wembley to get there?
I do think if they were possible, I think if they win this game, I think Oldham are the best team, aren't they? The best team that are left in the league. So I think if they win this, should win. I mean, they
Yeah,
finished so far ahead, didn't they, of everybody else? I know they were behind Barnet, but they were 12 points.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit of a travesty, really,
Yeah,
isn't it? So we shall see. As I said,
yeah, it is. But still, that's the playoff system, isn't it?
I'm off to Ireland, so I'll hopefully come back and give you a little replacement on that. Nick, you've got a few weeks before you're going
Yeah,
off
that'd be
to
awesome.
Madeira, aren't you, this time round?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I was thinking doing train tickets this Saturday, and I was thinking about Chester, Bruce. But if you say the train isn't running that way now, then I'll have to think again.
yeah.
Might
I
do me
discovered it.
might do me Super Seven Weatherspoons again.
Oh God, no!
Go
Yeah.
and enjoy my steak. A
Buy
steak in every
your
pub, and a
Get on
mixed
his steak
grill and a
leg.
piece of gammon.
You have a piece of bacon and a sausage.
Mm.
That's all you can have these days.
We'll have to pencil something for end of June. Yeah, I'm going to Wakefield to Lupset on Friday to try Georgia Green Fisheries. The fish chips are really dark. They're cooking with beef dripping. And I'm going to Fernandes Brewery Tap. They hand out free bread and dripping in Fernandes Brewery Tap in Wakefield on a Friday. Bread and dripping. Yeah, but that'd be awesome going around Ireland though. I'm so envious. That'd
Yeah,
be
so we'll,
fantastic.
I'll keep you
Yeah.
posted. Yeah, I'll keep you posted. I've got what's his name, Mutton Chops, whatever he's called. I keep watching him. Although there's a couple of places he goes to where he gets kicked out,
Oh yeah.
because he's a bit eccentric, isn't he?
Yeah,
Especially with about nine
definitely.
pints of Guinness.
Yeah.
Mutinistas. That's the one. Right, gentlemen, have a good time, and we'll hopefully catch up
When
sometime in June.
do you go to Madeira, Nick? Yes, definitely. Yes, have a great time. Don't speak before then. Yes. See
I
you.
was drinking Thixton's in collaboration, the Hairy Bikers. Very nice indeed.
Hairy
Wakefield's
biker
£2.50 a
now.
bottle.
Right, with that, we are going. We need to go, or we get sued for something else now.
Right, see you later.